Hi, guys, and welcome to your real estate journey expert tips for buyers and sellers. I am Dolly Lopez, your real estate broker and coach in the state of Florida and Kentucky. As like today, like every Thursday, I am joined by my favorite real estate attorney, VPPs, Leslie and Valerie. Welcome, ladies. How are you?
Hi.
Hello, how are
Having
you?
I am so excited. It's December,
Yeah,
like almost. It's over.
it's
So
it's it's almost January. To me, that's it. 2023 is over. We're already in 2024.
I know it has been a year
Yes,
full of
it has.
a lot of interesting thing happening more in the real estate market. now,
Yes.
um, now let's say that. So today we want to talk about the seller's expectations whenever from the time they list their property
Mhm.
till closing. So I thought we kind of thought it would be a good idea to just talk about the sellers because we talk a lot about buyers.
Mhm.
So whenever if you are thinking of listing your property, in my opinion, the first thing that you need to do is to hire the right real estate agent. That's very, very important because those are the people who's going to guide you from the beginning to the end and who's going to guide you to the right people to get the right things.
Mhm.
So the first thing is hire a real estate professional. You want to make sure that you know what type of marketing they're doing, obviously how much they charge, which is pretty common and
Mhm.
not common knowledge, but you will definitely know that. And but most importantly, price the property right. With a
Correct.
real estate professional, will definitely guide you onto. We want to list your property, $10 million if we could. We are just a messenger. I
Right.
will tell you exactly how much your property is worth and what we can do to 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 sell it and to sell it for the most money possible. And that would take and that would possibly be modifying a few things in the house. It might be taking a few things out of the house to make the house spacious. So there is going to be a lot of suggestions that a real estate professional will be able to tell you. Then there goes a lot of paperwork on the real estate side. So after you choose your realtor, then you speak and to them in a meeting, and they will guide you on how they're going to sell the property, what are the best marketing idea that they have and that they will do. And I'm talking more about not only putting the house on the market and just pray for it to sell on its own. There's more, much more than that. Um, so then do whatever is suggested for your realtor will be able to suggest a few modifications and think about it and go ahead and do it. Then we start looking at whenever having people coming over.
Mhm.
And that's so stressful. That it's you have to make your house look presentable at all times. Like some clients they have said, well, people know I live here. Yeah, that is true, but we want to make sure we get the most out of it,
Right.
uh, out of the sale. So once we start looking at the property, start showing the property, then goes offers. We start receiving some offers, and once we receive offers, what we'll do is look at the terms, and we can send counter offers if we don't like the terms or the price. So there goes the negotiation period. After the negotiation period, we are under contract. And then after under contract, then Valerie and Leslie take it away. What happens after that? And there's a couple of things on the real estate side, but
So one more thing I think I want to add to your side and the importance of having a realtor and knowing that a realtor is experienced in this industry is your reach, right? As a seller, I want to make sure that my realtor has a large reach into where she could post and where she could market the sale of my house. And that is such a big deal because the bigger the reach, the more offers you're going to get, because the more viewage you'll get of your property. And I know that this is something that Dolly and Dolly's team does so expertly, is that marketing of the property.
Right.
So it's so important. And then I'm adding a little bit more for Dolly, but it's so important to know that your agent has that reach, has that marketing skill to be able to assure that they're going to be able to get the best offer, because they're being able to get the property out there to the public.
Right. It's not just to have a license to be a broker or a realtor to lease the property. It's about what is your broker doing to market your property at the highest price that you can sell, so that you benefit from the sale at its maximum. Because let's be honest, we are in the business of selling or buying because everybody wants to make a profit. You're not just doing it because, you want to give, a gift to somebody. For that, you would just do a quick claim deed, get rid of the property, and that's it. No, you want to make profit, and that's fine. That's the way of living, and we love it, right? But you need a broker who's specialized in marketing the property and going to your property and doing an analysis before anything else, doing an analysis of exactly how much you can market your property for, the maximum amount that you can get. And if you need to do some retouches here and there that are not very costly, but are going to make quite a difference when you market the property, that's the person you want to be with. And not just some person who holds a license and then it's only going to list it on the MLS, and then let's just, wait for people to call and be interested in the property. That's not how it works. You're not going to get the maximum people interested in the property, and then the offers flowing, which is what you want.
Yep. And actually, I train all of my agents to market the property. At the end of the day, anyone can list it. If you hold a license, you can list it on the MLS, but you have to do more than that. Actually, most of my properties, they have come from the marketing that we have done. They don't come from Zillow, or they don't come because they just saw it online somewhere.
Right.
They have come because, and we have been able to sell the property over asking price in this market because of the marketing, because of the reach. Yep, that's exactly right. I just didn't want to talk too much about it.
Oh, it's so important. That's why I was like, wait. I think we need to add a little bit more to that. But it's so very important. But yes, once that part of the aspect of the process is done and we're under contract, then that's when Dolly's going to introduce you to us, VPP Law Firm, who is going to represent you in the transaction from the very beginning to when, the offer's done up until the closing date. And so what you need to know as sellers, or what you need to anticipate as sellers, are your expenses, right? That's the most important part. Everybody wants to know, okay, how much is this going to cost me? Because if we're selling our house for $500,000, beautiful, but what do I got to reduce my cost from there? So I know what to expect on the closing date, right? So you anticipate what your gains are going to be, and you can prepare for that, whether you want to buy another house or whatever the case may be. And so we're here to talk to you about that. And it's very important to know that it differs in the state of Florida, whether you're in South Florida, the Miami-Dade, Broward, Monroe County area, or whether you're up north. For a seller, the charges are going to be different. So we're going to first talk about Miami-Dade, Broward, and Monroe County, which is the Florida Keys, Miami, the Broward area. So usually a offer is going to include what's called the Miami-Dade Broward provision. And if it does include that Miami-Dade Broward provision, the seller will be paying for what's called a lien search, right? To make sure that there's no liens on the property. They're going to be paying for any kind of estoppel. If the property is part of an association, they're going to be paying for the estoppel as well. Then they're also going to be paying for what's called a title search. The title search is going to give us if that property has any debts, if that property has been used as collateral for any loans, not just, regular mortgages, but also for private loans as well. That's going to show up there. If there are any violations against the city, it'll also show up there. So those are the primary expenses that a seller is going to have in the Miami-Dade, Broward County areas. Now, if we go up north a little bit, which is going to be more, in the Tampa area, Jacksonville, Orlando, and that area, typically it's another provision that's checked off, which is going to be the seller provision. And that's going to be when the seller is going to be responsible for paying what's called the title fees with the title policy insurance for the buyer. Now, it's very important that we know what the difference is, because there's two kinds of policies. There's either going to be a buyer's policy and a mortgagee policy, because the buyer is going to be getting what's called a loan to be able to obtain and purchase the property. And in that case, the seller needs to know that they only pay for the buyer's policy, not for the lender's policy. Anything to do with the lender, that's on the buyer. The buyer has to pay for all those fees. The only fee that the buyer will be paying for is going to be the title policy for the owner. And so those are really the main fees that differ, because it also depends on the location of the property, right? So we can't tell you it's going to be, a lien search will be this amount of money. We can't tell you that, just because it depends on where the property is. Right. So something that, we do, and we find it to be helpful, and we've done it with Dolly's team as well a lot, is if you're selling a property, we give an estimated fee, right? We'll give you an estimate of what we can anticipate, knowing where the property is, knowing what we want to sell it for. If we're able to sell it for that amount, here are your estimated costs, if nothing else were to show up during the closing, so that you can already anticipate where you want to be in the market.
Yep.
Right. There's also to consider about the stopples, because if the property that the seller is selling is within an association, whether a condominium and homeowners, it will require us as title companies to request a stopple. Sometimes the seller's attorney can request it directly. It depends on the relationship between the seller's attorney and the title company for the buyer. If they're not the same, they communicate between each other, and they make sure that only one of them is ordering the stopple, as to not double charge the seller for the same fee. And that fee is the responsibility of the seller, because you need to make sure that title is being transferred clear, right? And one of the things that can attach into the property are, late fees, overdue assessments for the association, or any special assessment that was recently passed, and upon the sale of the property has to be completely paid off, for the association to issue the approval letter that has to be attached to the title before recording on the public records. So that's another fee that it varies. So there's not an amount that we can communicate to the seller, well, the stopple is going to cost you $20, $100, $150. It depends on the association, because they're the ones who put the fee on it. And there also may have fees associated with the transfer. There also may be late fees. We don't know. So as we request the stopple, and then they let us know, okay, how much it's going to cost the seller to get all of the information from the association, so that the buyer is completely informed. So that's another fee that, it's not a set amount of money that we can communicate to the seller.
Let's say if you were to just do an average of what is the percentage overall, and I know it varies quite a bit if it's in South Florida than the rest of Florida. So, but it could go from this amount, from this percentage to this other percentage, just for people to have an idea. What would you say? What would you see?
So I would say, and this is speaking very broadly, but you're looking at what your expenses should be, and this isn't including a mortgage payoff, right? Because a mortgage payoff is going to change that percentage drastically. Yep. Because if you have a large payoff, it's going to, be a large percentage.
Without a payoff, without a
payoff, without any existing loans that you have to pay, you're looking at maybe between 10 and 12% is what the seller is going to have to be paying from the sale price.
From the sales price. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say, because in South Florida, more than in the rest of the Florida, do you, most of the time buyers picks closing company?
Correct.
Most of the time, or in other part of Florida, like the seller might pick closing company, but then the buyer doesn't. So one of them two have to pick closing companies. Let's say that we are representing a seller. I'm representing a seller, mm-hmm. but the buyer picks the closing company. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have a service where you can actually represent the seller regardless of the closing company who the buyer is using?
It's actually how it should be.
Right.
Because a seller should not be represented by a title agency unless there is an attorney owned title company.
Mhm.
So, and even then, we rather represent the seller in just the attorney capacity, because you have to draft legal documents for the transfer of the property, such as the warranty deed, the bill of sale, closing affidavits. There may be affidavit of no, of no identity. There may have been married in the past, that there was a continuous marriage. There are so many affidavits that you may, be required to draft pursuant to the title commitment, that only an attorney is capable of doing that. It's the only one with a license able to draft any such documents. And we know that a lot of
Really
times
required, if I'm not mistaken.
it
You
is.
cannot draft
It
a
is.
legal document without having
Correct.
a license.
If not, then you would be, doing unlicensed practice of law, which is, a crime. And you can get sanctions and all of those troubles that you can get into. But from the seller's perspective, you do want an attorney specializing in real estate, not just a name on a title company that is used, copy and pasting, and I'm not lying to you, copying and pasting into the top of the legal documents that they are drafting themselves. A title agent, not an attorney, not anybody, not a law firm. No, they're just copying and pasting, generating the documents from whatever web software they're using, and then just copying and pasting the name of an attorney who quickly reviews and say, well, it complies with the minimum and it suffices, and then just go ahead and send them to the other side. That's not how it works, because you really have to pay attention to the obligations and requirements of the title commitment. You have to open that closely. You have to examine what you're required to do. You have to then examine the responses from your client, and not just assuming the information that you're getting. It's crystal clear. You need to confirm whether your client is responsible for A, B, and C liens that appear associated with his name. You're also responsible to make sure that he doesn't have any knowledge of problems with the property that may arise later, and then he's going to be responsible for not disclosing such problems before the closing day. So you do have to dig in, and not just in generating the documents. You have to communicate, discuss every single document with your client, and make sure that when he signs, he's signing, truthfully, because then both can get into trouble. Not only the seller, but you as the attorney, not overlooking whatever he was signing. He's going to blame you as the attorney.
Yep. So I'm glad that we mentioned that, because there's a lot of people that might think that since we already have a title company, I don't need to be represented by an attorney. And it's important for people to know that, yes, they do need to be represented by an attorney. They do, because ultimately, just because you didn't know, in a court, I don't know how that's going to justify. Because
Not a defense. Just so
Okay.
that we know, that's not a defense. Ignorance is not bliss before the courts. So you cannot just say, "Oh, I didn't know." Like, no, that doesn't work like that.
Gotcha. So I'm really glad that we went over this.
Yes.
because a lot of sellers, they just pick whomever
Right.
without
And
mentally-
before we finish, Dolly, it always surprises me that sellers anywhere outside of Miami-Dade and Broward, they like actually choosing the title agent for the buyer. And that, to me, it's a little bit of a shock, because if you think about it, you're adding liabilities to yourself, because you were the one who selected the title company. You're the one who's calling the shots. Why would you want, such a big responsibility on your shoulders? So I always encourage people, put that responsibility onto the buyer. I mean, I know that, and plus you're paying for a liability you're gaining. So I've never understood why sellers anywhere else, they just don't like buyers to choosing and picking their own title company and then paying for the title related fees. And I don't know, it's something that surprises me. I don't know if it's because we've been raised in this whole different in Miami-Dade and Broward, but I from my common sense perspective as an attorney and avoiding liabilities at all costs, I wouldn't want to have that on top of paying for it. I don't know. It's just the way I'm.
Yeah, no, I think that it's just we are used to it more than anything. I don't think that we put a lot of thought into it. I actually prefer to use my own closing companies because I know you guys are going to do a phenomenal job.
Right.
And I trust, I have seen it. I trust on that. I like every time that I'm representing one side and then the other side picks the closing company. For me, it's like, oh my God, what are we gonna do now? What's gonna happen this time around? I mean, and it's constant. It's constant. It just happens all the time. I'm like, I really try to pick the closing company just because I know you guys are gonna do a really good job, which I cannot say the same thing. I had actually a client earlier this year who we were ready to close. We were ready to close in 14 days.
Oh wow.
And I was representing the buyer. We had to delay closing because the title company didn't do their job. We actually had to drag it out for 30 days because they didn't do the stopple. They just took their own time to do their own thing. And then obviously my client was a little upset because we
Right.
did our thing.
Right.
We were really quick on doing our end. But then we had to wait for the title company.
That's unfortunate.
But then just like that, I mean, just think about it. 15 days extension, whenever you hear it on video, it feels like, oh, it's nothing. It's just 15 days. Whenever you are under contract, it stresses you the heck
Yeah, it's a lifetime. That could be a lifetime, especially if the seller's relying on those funds to use for something else.
Right.
Yep.
So that could be a lifetime.
Yep. So it's very important, guys, to pick your title company wisely.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Want to make sure you do know what you are, who's representing you. Who do you have on your team to represent you in that transaction? Either that's the realtor, the closing company, anybody. Actually, on the seller side is a lot shorter.
And the buyer side.
Than the buyer side. But if you have a good team on your side, there is no way you could go wrong. I mean, it still could go wrong, but
Yeah, but at least you're protected.
you are. So guys, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure working with you this year. So I'm very grateful that we are partners, and I really love what you guys do, and I really love how much you guys help my clients in particular. So I really so much appreciate you both. So thank you, and I will see you guys next year.
Yes.
You will.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.